Good afternoon and welcome to this live broadcast of live proceedings from the National Assembly. It is Thursday, 26th day of September. It is the last Thursday of the month of September. In a short while, we shall be linking up with members of the National Assembly as they execute their mandate in the August House, and that is drafting and passing legislation that govern this jurisdiction that is the country of Kenya. This afternoon, members shall be putting the question to a report of the Committee of Honorable Moses Cheboy. And so what remains this afternoon is for members to decide whether or not it shall be proceeding to the next stage, which is the third reading, and thereafter onward on the revised sessional paper number 1 of the year 2019 on the policy framework for reforming education and training for sustainable development in Kenya. The Departmental Committee on Education and Research, chaired by the Honorable Julius Meli, has already considered this particular paper and compiled a report. Discussions on this matter already begun. And as per the order paper, there is 30 minutes left for more debate, time which members can use to further prosecute issues of concern that they may have as regards that document. Thereafter, they shall consider a bill from the Senate, the Early Childhood Education Bill, Senate Bill number 26 of the year 2018. It seeks to provide a framework for establishment of systems for the administration of early childhood education within counties. It is anchored on the Constitution that provides that the pre-primary bit of education is a function of county governments, and that every child in Kenya has a right to free and compulsory early childhood education in a public education center. It is a bill that assigns various roles to county government, parents, guardians, teachers to ensure that children do get their rights. A report on a fact-finding mission on the welfare of migrant Kenyan workers in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that was tabled in the House on the 8th of August 2019 is also lined up for debate this afternoon, as is a petition to county assemblies procedure bill, Senate Bill number 22 of the year 2018, that spells out the processes that should be undertaken by citizens who wish to petition county assemblies. It is a legislation that, if enacted, will allow for petitioners to start by raising their issues at county level before they even escalate it to national level, which is consideration in Parliament by both the National Assembly and the Senate. Yet another bill pending before the House, the County Government's Revenue Raising Process Bill, National Assembly Bill number 24 of the year 2018. That, in addition to a number of questions that will be, or rather that are lined up for question time this afternoon, the Honorable Gishimu Githinji, Member of Parliament Gishugu, will be seeking answers from the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources concerning water projects in his constituency, and specifically the Mega Kerugoya Kutu's water supply project. The Honorable Innocent Obiri Momanyi, Member of Parliament Bobasi, has questions directed to the Teacher Service Commission regarding the interdiction of 9 head teachers in his constituency. That and much more coming your way in this afternoon sitting that is brought to you courtesy of the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit and the Kenya Broadcasting Corps,
whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of important trust in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled. Grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberations in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country, and of those whose interests you've committed to our charge. Amen. Other members, we are well constituted, and therefore business will begin.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honorable members, I have a communication to make in terms of guiding us on consideration of the 4 Senate bills that is before us. Honorable members, as you may recall, on 4th July 2019, I conveyed to the House a message from the Senate regarding passage of the following Senate bills. 1, the County Roads, Walkway, and Parking Bay Bills, Senate Bill number 18 of 2018, and 2, County Outdoor Advertising Control Bill, Senate Bill number 19 of 2018, the County Law Compliance and Enforcement Bill, Senate Bill number 25 of 2018, and 4, the County Wards Equitable Development Bill, Senate Bill number 34 of 2018. Honorable members, following the first reading of the 4 bills on 30th July 2019, I did undertake to pronounce my opinion with respect to the money bill effect of the 4 bills pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 143.2, which provides that, following the first reading, the Speaker shall within a reasonable time pronounce his or her opinion contemplated under Article 114.2 of the Constitution. Now, therefore, I have made a determination that the 4 bills do not fall within the meaning of a money bill. As such, they may proceed for the second reading in the same manner as a bill originating in the National Assembly, as provided for under Standing Order 143.3. Honorable members, in this regard, the said bills are hereby referred to the respective committees for consideration as follows. The first bill, which is the County Roads, Walkways, and Parking Bay Bill, Senate Bill number 18 of 2018, will be committed to the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works, and Housing. The County Outdoor Advertising Control Bill, Senate Bill number 19 of 2018, will be committed to the Departmental Committee on Communication, Information, and Innovation. The third one, which is a County Law Compliance and Enforcement Bill, Senate Bill number 25 of 2018, will be committed to the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. And lastly, the County Wards Equitable Development Bill, Senate Bill number 34 of 2018, will be committed to the National Government Constituency Development Fund Committee. I have deliberately referred the last bill to the National Government Constituencies Development Fund Committee pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 127.6a, given that the statutory mandate of the committee and the proposals contained in the bill. I thank you.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Members, kindly take your seats. Order, members, order. Order. Order, members. I would like to convey a public petition regarding the establishment of a statutory fund for compensation of victims of disasters. Honorable members, Standing Order 2252B requires the Speaker to report to the House any petition other than those presented by a member. I therefore wish to report to the House that my office has received a petition from one Mr. Patrick Waturu Mwaneki of P.O. Box 530 Nyeri, calling for an establishment of a statutory fund to facilitate compensation of victims of natural and man-made disasters. In this petition, the honorable members, the petitioner highlights several disasters that the country has faced over the years, including the 1998 Nairobi bomb blast, the Sinai fuel spillage fire tragedy, the Sachangwan fuel tanker tragedy, the Solai Dam tragedy, collapsing buildings, acts of terrorism, landslides, earthquakes, heavy rains, and their resultant floods, among others. Whilst the petitioner agrees that it is possible to obtain insurance payout or court awards following the aftermath of certain disasters, he nevertheless is convinced that this is not always possible in most cases. Here, he cites various natural disasters such as the Hell's Gate flood tragedy, where no particular person can be held responsible for acts of that nature, which is an act of God, as well as some man-made disasters, such as the Garissa University terror attack, which students and other victims had no insurance cover. Honorable members, the petitioner is of the opinion that the mandate of the National Disaster Management Unit under the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government is restricted to coordination of disasters management initiatives, public awareness of disaster policy, and disaster preparedness, and as such, the issue of compensation of victims of disaster is left unattended to. It is in this premise that the honorable members that the petitioner seeks an intervention of this august House in establishing a National Disaster Compensation Trust Fund to bridge the gap occasioned by lack of compensation for victims of disaster who are neither awarded compensation by court nor granted any insurance payout. Honorable members, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 227, this petition stands committed to the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. The committee is required to consider the petition and report its finding to the House and to the petitioner in accordance with Standing Order 2272. I thank you.
Order number 5, papers.
Pressed intervention. Honorable Atandi, you have an issue on this?
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to comment on the petition and say that this is a very, very important and good petition. Mr. Speaker, you are aware that there have been lots of victims of police brutality in this country, and most of them have not been compensated. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I think that part of what would be considered as man-made disasters would be victims of police brutality. And I wanted to urge members of this House, especially members of the committee, to support this petition because this time around it has been members from our community that have suffered from police brutality. But I see a situation where next time we might have most members from that side, the Tanga side. Most of them, I'm sure, will be victims of police brutality. So I want them to take this petition very, very seriously because you never know which side will be victims of police brutality. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honorable Tekla Tum.
Yeah, is it in order for the member to say there will be disasters? I mean, there will be issues pertaining this side? Does he know what is going to happen in the future?
Well, I do not see what was completely out of order with what Honorable Atandi did. And actually, when I was giving you the opportunity, Honorable Dr. Tum, I thought you were interested in speaking to it, but in any case, you've raised a concern which, weighing, probably it escaped my mind. I did not see anything that Honorable Atandi spoke that was out of order, but it was good enough for you to raise it anyway. So let me give, and I feel you. You know, when lives are lost, it is something that is a serious thing. But I would have been happy you do one of the two things. Number one, you could ask a separate question for yourself, or secondly, it's now easier because the matter is before the House. You can attend the committee, and I will ask the chair of the committee when they will be summoning the member for Ndhiwa, they should also give some, you know, some sign to Honorable Kaluma to be present so that he can articulate those issues. Because when it is something that touches on lives lost, it is serious. And members of parliament, for sure, are supposed to represent their people. And despite the fact that you did it wrongly, Honorable Kaluma, I think it is because of the attachment you have to your people, which is okay, and the pain. So let's proceed. Next question. This one will be, as I've said, will be replied to before the Transport and Public Works and Housing Committee. But let's also get a question from the member for Kabete, Honorable Kamau Wamashuk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is question number 424, year 2019, directed to Cabinet Secretary Health. 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain when the government is yet to limit healthcare funds meant for elderly persons to the National Hospital Insurance Fund, despite issuing them with NHIF cards? 2. What steps is the ministry taking to address the above problems so as to ensure that the elderly persons have access to healthcare services? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That one will be replied to before the Committee on Health. So the last question for today is by the member for Nyeri, Honorable Mukami Wachira Rahab.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I would like to ask 3 questions. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain the drastic reduction in the tea bonus payout from 50 shillings per kilogram to 230 per kilogram, despite he says that Mombasa tea auction fetching high rates exceeding to Kenya shillings 200 a kilogram? Second question, what steps has the ministry taken to address the challenge occasioned by the reduction in view of the fact that most tea farmers had already taken upfront loans at a rate of that per kilogram of tea in anticipation of tea bonus rate of 50 shillings per kg? The third question, what long-term plans does the government have in sustaining the tea and coffee sector in view of the fact that farmers have already started uprooting their tea and coffee crops? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I almost overruled you, Honorable Mukami, because you said you wanted to ask 3 questions. Yet, you know, if you are to ask 3 questions, you must ask them separately. But what you asked is actually one question in different, going to get some specific answers to that part of the question. And therefore, this will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperatives.
To traverse extreme distances, extreme journey to Thika town for administrative and economic activities due to lack of passage within the property. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee of Lands in the following. 1, what is the actual size of land occupied by Del Monte Kenya Limited Company? 2, whether there is any land that is unutilized by the same company. 3, whether the land allocated to Del Monte Kenya Company is public land and how was it allocated. 4, what is the status of neighboring parcels of land that were surrendered back to the government on 5th of January 1973 in Murang'a and Kiambu County. 6, whether there are measures by the ministry to identify and recover land that is occupied by Del Monte illegally. And 6, whether the government has established the actual size of land that is not under utilization for the last 90 years, contrary to the terms of condition of the lease. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. That is, of course, committed to the relevant committee. I hear there are a few members who want to make a comment on this. Can we start with the Leader of Majority?
Mr. Speaker, we must review all these titles, 99 years held by big companies. You cannot have big companies holding tracts of land when Kenyans who are living around those companies are squatters. What kind of independence are we talking about? What kind of independence are we talking about? Land is issue. Those people, I don't want to go the Zimbabwean way, that about land redistribution, but there must be a way in which, that the excess land they have, they must settle the people around them. And most of them, in fact, they work in their farms. They work in their farms every day, and they go back and they have no place, even to bury themselves when they die. Speaker, I'm saying this because of the other Kenyans. Where I come from, land is plenty, and we don't bury our people in where we live. You know, we go to Langata Cemetery. But Del Monte, the big farms in Kericho, and today you are seeing Mumias Sugar Company has mortgaged the land of the small-scale farmers around Mumias. And now they are part of the receivership. Mumias Sugar Company used the title of those few small-scale farmers around the sugar factory and used it as a mortgage to get loans. And now everybody, including Mumias and the local peasants, are all in one problem. So I think the Land Committee, Mr. Speaker, must find a way, government must find a way that as we go, we have been talking, and I think the political leadership, every election, we make solving the squatter problem one of our key manifesto agenda. I saw a video clip, Mr. Speaker, of a politician. I don't know if it was true. He promised during campaign he will build a bridge. So he came back after the 5 years was over, and the people threw him in the they threw him in the river. When he said the next time he came back, he said, I'm going to fix this bridge. Okay, they told him come, and they threw him in the river. That is how Kenya will be, because we can't promise to solve the squatter problem, and then we are not solving it. So I think I agree with the petition. Del Monte have huge tracts of land. We are not telling them settle Mheshimiwa Jude Jomo or Aden Duale or anybody. But please settle, give land to the people who work in your farms, give land to the people who live around you, and solve the squatter problem. We can't have Kenyans living in a place where a foreign company is owning tracts of land in their own country. You can't do that in Italy. You can't have, a Kenyan cannot own land in Italy and next to him there are some Italian squatters. No, that can't happen. So I think this is a very important petition, and the chair of lands is here. You need to visit Del Monte, and you need to listen to the Kenyans there and ask them how many years they have worked for Del Monte, and where do they live, and when they die, where do they bury their loved ones. I support.
Honorable Kingola.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank Honorable Jude. I know the pain he has. Mr. Speaker, he's lucky he's talking of the colonial masters. Mr. Speaker, I want to give a case in point. You know, everybody here, I have 3/4 of members of parliament who live in Mavoko. Mr. Speaker, the land issues in Mavoko are emotive as much as in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, this petition is coming at the right time, when even the chair lands has had so many petitions from people in Mavoko, Machakos County. Mr. Speaker, the issue of land and big companies owning them and the leases expiring and them starting to sell land. Mr. Speaker, it's high time we put the Land Act into practice and we implement accordingly. Mr. Speaker, we cannot have companies owning land. For example, I'll give you an example of East Africa Portland. Most of us here were not born when East African Portland started mining. Mr. Speaker, to date, out of the 16,000 acres, they have mined 10,000 acres. And all what we are asking And the petition that is in front of this House, Mr. Speaker, was to have Eastern Portland surrender just 6,000 acres to the residents. Mr. Speaker, you cannot afford big companies if they give just a half of the 16,000 acres.
Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 42-2A, I rise to give the following statement on behalf of the House Business Committee, following its sitting held on Tuesday, September 24th, 2019. Honorable Speaker, on Tuesday next week, the House Business Committee has prioritized the first reading of the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill number 4 of 2019, the Public Fundraising Appeals Bill 2019. Thereafter, the House will consider a motion on the approval of nominees for the appointment as chairperson and members of the Land Commission, National Land Commission. We will also consider, Mr. Speaker, the following business, should we not conclude it that day. The report of the Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs on the ratification, accession of the agreement for establishment of an International Anti-Corruption Academy as an international organization. Mr. Speaker, also on the pipeline for Tuesday or Wednesday next week is a report of the Committee on Labor and Social Welfare on the fact-finding mission on the welfare of migrant Kenyan workers in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The Speaker, we will also deal with the second reading of the following bills, should we not conclude them today. The Early Childhood Education Bill, Senate Bill number 26 of 2018, the County Government Revenue Raising Process Bill, National Assembly Bill number 24 of 2018, and the Petition to County Government Procedure Bill, Senate Bill number 22 of 2018. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 42A, Section 5 and 6, I wish to convey that the following Cabinet Secretaries will appear before committees next week. Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development and Public Works will appear before the Departmental Committee on Transport on Thursday, October 3rd, 2019, to answer the following questions. And Mr. Speaker, where chairs are not available, they should allow their vice chairs to take charge. Because at times I have seen, we are trying to adapt what the Senate does. If a chair is not there, then he cancels the meeting. So if a chair is not there, let the vice chair does. If the vice chair and the chair are away, one of the members can chair. The following questions: 348, Honorable Sarah Korere, Honorable Paul Nzengu, Honorable Benjamin Mwangi, Honorable Alfred Keter, Honorable Charles Njagagwa, Honorable Tindi Mwale, Honorable Oku Kaunya, and Honorable Kawira Mwangaza, Honorable David Gikaria, and Honorable Michael Mushira. All these members have questions before the CS for Transport. And Honorable Ayub Savula. The Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government will appear before the committee on Monday, September 30th, 2019, to answer the following questions from the following members: Honorable Benjamin Washiali, Honorable David Sankok, Honorable Alpha Miruka, Honorable Joseph Manje, Honorable Nasra Ibrahim, Honorable Peter Masara, Honorable Sylvanus Maritim, Honorable Moses Ijendi, Honorable Halima Mucheke, Honorable Ruwaida Obo, Honorable Kamoti Mwakale. All these members, their questions will be answered on Monday by the CS for Interior and Coordination of National Government. And lastly, Honorable Beatrice Nkatha. Finally, Honorable Speaker, the House Business Committee will reconvene on Tuesday, 1st of October, at the rise of the House to schedule business for the rest of the week. I wish now to lay this statement on the table of the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Yes, what is it, Honorable Pukose?
Honorable Speaker, I rise under Standing Order 216 on mandate of departmental committee as read together with the provisions of Article 95(2).
What is it, Honorable? Well, but would you allow?
I'm on a point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Because he's on a point of order. Okay, proceed, Honorable Pukose.
Honorable Speaker, I rise under Standing Order 216 on mandate of departmental committees as read together with the provisions of Article 95(2) of the Constitution regarding the role of the House in resolving issues of concern to the people. Mr. Speaker, there's been concerns on failure of persons in public offices to comply with court orders. A case in point, the Honorable Speaker, is the recent order on Honorable Sosion to resume his office as the Secretary General of NAT. Mr. Speaker, despite that court order, the Inspector General of Police, who has declined to enforce this lawful order, yet continues to occupy the office and enjoy the privileges of the office of the Inspector General. Honorable Speaker, and this is just not one case alone. Even in my constituency, Honorable Speaker, Endebess Farmers Investment court order that ensured that the police were not to evict the occupants of that farm. But the police sub-county commander disobeyed it and went ahead and demolished and destroyed houses. And that's before the Committee on Administration. So would it be in order, Honorable Speaker, that to ask you to order the Departmental Committee on Justice or that on Administration and National Security to inquire on this matter and others where the rule of law is not being respected by public officials?
Maybe a member or two, so that I'm able to hear and then make a decision as to whether we really want to commit it to one of our committees or we would like to ask them to pursue it in the relevant areas. So I see Honorable Dr. Otiende Amolo. Amolo, let's hear from him.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the statement sought by the Honorable Pukose on a point of order stands to logic and to the extent that this House, as a House of Parliament, has an oversight responsibility for state officers generally. And to that extent, I think that it stands to reason to commit it to the relevant committee to consider that issue, but not so much on a specific case basis, but on a principle basis. On a principle basis, Mr. Speaker, because we have seen in this country that there are many times the courts issue orders, but certain officers routinely disobey those orders. Now that is an issue of oversight. But I would be hesitant to have it committed on a specific basis, because as far as I know, the case cited by the Honourable Member is a case that is live in court. And Mr. Speaker, to the extent that it is live in court, and except that, Mr. Speaker, now you're not listening, you're being distracted, and you had sought to get one or two advice from some of us. If the members could allow the Speaker to preside over the House, we would all be very grateful.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Honorable Otiende Amolo, but unfortunately,
yes,
Unfortunately, he's always, most of the time, he's absent from the House. I can't see the deputy. Mr. Oluka is there. This is the committee that is responsible. And this committee has been sleeping on the job, Mr. Speaker. We've really complained on many issues. When you look at the many petitions that come to this parliament that goes to that particular committee, within 60 days, nothing. In any case, they always come for extension. I think, leader of majority, you need to crack the whip. Yeah, absolutely, because this is a very active committee.
Now that you've mentioned Honorable Aluka and he has requested that he wants to, let's hear what Honorable Aluka has to say. Because you mentioned him, I'll give him a, what is it, Honorable Aluka?
I think, Honorable Speaker, to put the record straight, Honorable Marwa has lost the point.
Which one?
Because we, as a Administration and National Security, Mr. Speaker, I think we are performing our job as far as the departmental committee is concerned. And if he wants to, to contribute in the House, on the floor of the House, Mr. Speaker, I think let him go straight to what he wants to contribute, but not on the Security Committee, because we are working around the clock, 24/7, Mr. Speaker, wanting to make sure that everything in this country calls well. We don't sleep, Mr. Speaker. The other day we were in Kitui, we are in Lodwar, we are everywhere. And that is why the security of this house or this country, Mr. Speaker, is up to date.
Well,
yes, Mr. Speaker.
I think I hear what Honorable Aluke is saying, because really Honorable Amalwa should have cited a specific matter. Now, when you generalize and say they sleep on the job, and Honorable Aluke says no, he doesn't sleep on the job, he sleeps at home. Now, it becomes a problem. And you see, another thing that we must also recognize is that that particular committee has quite some work, a lot of it. So sometimes they are overwhelmed. We should also give credit that they do some reasonably good job. They might have some flaws here and there. We can raise them specifically. If, for example, Honorable Amalo had a specific issue, this one we have not even committed to their committee. In fact, I was still grappling whether to commit to any committee, and if at all, to commit it to any committee, which one? Is it the Justice and Legal Affairs, which Honorable Bukose has requested, or it is the one which you have requested yourself? And I'm surprised, Honorable Amalwa, that you are saying the Committee on Security is sleeping on the job, and you are the one making a request that it should be taken to that particular committee. So, well, I think you had finished your point. I would want to give, but on the issue of that particular committee, they are doing a reasonably good job. So let's hear what you have to say in summary now, so that I give another one or two members.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the matter of NAT, NAT plays a very critical role as far as the welfare of the teachers is concerned. And particularly this time when we are about to go have the forthcoming KCP and KCSE.
What is the issue of teachers again?
Case, I'm trying to justify the importance of NAT and the absence of leadership. If the court had given orders, and when you go to that office, I personally tried to pass there lunchtime, there's many goons around that office.
No, I don't want you to go that direction. Honorable Amalwa, I don't want you to go that direction. In fact, what Honorable Dr. Otiende Amolo had brought well is the fact that it was a generalized thing. It's a matter of principle. If you touch on the issue of NAT, for example, it becomes probably subject.
The servant of the House in both the Security Committee and the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. Mr. Speaker, the matter of enforcement of court orders and respect for court orders is something that is currently of a national concern. And Mr. Speaker, this is the extent to which I think...
And as you speak, I would like to pick from your mind, Honorable Kaluma, as to whether, if at all, I'm not saying that is the direction we are taking, which committee would be the better committee to handle this matter?
Yes.
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, a short while ago we had the matter for Miguna, who, found himself in the situation he was. And Mr. Speaker, it should not be lost from us that there is a time that gentleman was somewhere as close as the airport in Nairobi. There are court orders that he be presented before court, and he cannot be presented. Instead, he's being taken away. And Mr. Speaker, I was before the court as one of the lawyers observing what was happening. We may take it lightly, but the desperation and the misery you see a judge going through. Because let us agree, Mr. Speaker, we are separate arms of government, but there is a way in which the judiciary also wants to relate with Parliament and the executive. So you have a case where the ministry concerned, the police officers and everybody are looking at a judge in their face and they are not obeying the order. The judge does not want to commit them to jail. I mean, what does the judge do? This is why I agree with the suggestion, Mr. Speaker, that this matter be committed to a committee to investigate as a matter of principle, not just a specific case. In the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, Mr. Speaker, you remember the 11th Parliament alone. How many people petitioned the committee through this Parliament to investigate why court orders issued to them were being investigated? I think time has come, and it is not for no reason that the oversight mandate is here. Mr. Speaker, for you to be the Inspector General of the country, we just vetted
the current office holder the other day. For you to be these judges, the Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice, there is a reason as to why the provisions of Article 95, Sub-Article 5 exists. Cases where it becomes impossible for an arm of government or an agency of government to deal with...
Resumption of debate.
On this particular one, we have 30 minutes. So I assume that the members who have placed requests want to speak to it. Honorable Mutua Barasa, member for Kimilili. Oh, sorry. Honorable Kilonzo, Honorable Charles Kilonzo had a balance of 3 minutes, and you can as well take advantage of that. Proceed, Honorable Kilonzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, one of the recommendations of this sessional papers, number 1 of 2019, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of relevance. And in particular, Roman 6 says emphasis on relevance of skills for industrial development, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when I talk about relevance, those of us who did history in secondary school, Mr. Speaker, it was the most irrelevant subject, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for example, we are taught about evolution of mankind. We are taught mankind started with the Australopithecus, Synjanthropus, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, to Homo sapiens, Mr. Speaker. I have never found the relevance of all those kind of terminologies, Mr. Speaker, in my lifetime, Mr. Speaker, and I'm here to find the relevance, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are being told in primary school, who was the first man to see Mount Kenya? What is the relevance of the first man to see Mount Kenya in somebody's life, Mr. Speaker? So, Mr. Speaker, as I support this, I also want to say, Mr. Speaker, cost of education is getting out of control. The NAC government under the then President Mwai Kibaki promised free primary education. But today, Mr. Speaker, there is no such a thing like free primary education. Because, Mr. Speaker, today, we have something called PTA fees to pay for teachers who are employed by the parents. We have tuition fees, something which is banned. We have sports fees and activity fees. We have exam fees, Mr. Speaker. If you visit your primary school, Mr. Speaker, every day you'll find these kids are being chased to go home and to look for money, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, government indeed needs to put more money in secondary and in primary education. Come and meet parents from some of these schools, Mr. Speaker.
I have really restrained myself, Honorable Kilonzo, for obvious reasons. I do not want to, but the direction you are trending is fairly slippery. I'm really restraining myself because there are some things that can be done by other people, not necessarily the parents. And I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. I don't want to go that direction. But, well, you are raising some concerns. But some of the specific ones you are talking about, like examination fees, are obviously not being paid. But now that you have gone to others, like you said, the BAT one, that I don't know, it goes to each particular parastatal, but let me leave it there. But since it's a house of debate, I'm giving you a leeway to, but please don't step on those very dangerous grounds that members will start asking you to substantiate things that are not necessary. Yes, finalize, please.
Mr. Speaker, indeed, this is a matter I've raised with Minister of Education, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, we might need to rethink as a House whether we need Teachers Service Commission as an independent body or we need to take it back to Minister of Education, Mr. Speaker. And I'm of the firm opinion that Teachers Service Commission has become a liability to teachers, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, ask those teachers who have retired for TSC to process their retirement benefits to go to Treasury. It's almost impossible, Mr. Speaker. It will take them almost a year or two plus, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I want to invite Committee of Education to come and visit the primary schools and talk to parents. And thanks a lot, Mr.
Then I give Honorable Mutua Barasa if he wants to speak to it. Seems he's absent. So I will give... now I'm trying to look out for members. Let's give Shinali Masaka, member for Ikolomani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to support Honorable Charles Kilonzo on the matter of education.
Sorry, just a minute, because this has escaped us for quite some time. There are pupils and students who are in the public gallery, Mukalala Primary School from Yata constituency in Machakos. I guess that's why the Member of Parliament was speaking with a lot of passion. His students are up here in the gallery. There is also Iviani Preparatory School from Machakos town. That's also in the neighborhood. Now I can understand what happened with the member this afternoon. He was very passionate. And then Mumbi Kiano Primary School from Kiharu constituency of Muranga County. So you proceed, Honorable Member for Ikolomani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support Honorable Charles Kilonzo on matters of education. Mr. Speaker, I think it runs across the board. The way education is run, the way teachers are handled in
now,
the way, Mr. Speaker.
Which one are you speaking to, Honorable Member for Ikolomani?
I'm speaking on the sessional paper, Mr. Speaker.
Sessional paper?
Yeah.
Then go relevant to it, please.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, the manner in which education is run across the constituencies, across the country, across the counties, Mr. Speaker, we have like two parallel administrations. There's the one for TSC, which performs almost same supervisory functions on schools, and the one from Ministry of Education, Mr. Speaker, is a duplication, is an expense, Mr. Speaker, to the government, because in case of discipline cases, Mr. Speaker, on teachers who are heading stations in our schools, Mr. Speaker, you find Ministry of Education is investigating, is checking on quality, Mr. Speaker, and TSC is doing the same thing, Mr. Speaker. I wish that this House relooks into how education, the running and administration of education can be streamlined, so that, Mr. Speaker, we have one command, we have one line of administration, so that it's moving smoothly, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the confusion we are seeing even at Takoradi, Mr. Speaker, is because we do not have one command station where teachers can be supervised, teachers can be followed to make sure our students, our children, Mr. Speaker, in our schools are secure and make the running of education reasonable, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honorable Mohammed Sheikh is not in. You're here? Honorable Wahungu, you surely are not Sheikh. But since Sheikh is not there and we are on that side, I'll give it to you, Honorable Wamalwa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, sessional papers in many jurisdictions, these are very important papers, Madam Speaker, that inform legislation. And I want to thank the Committee on Education and the Ministry for coming up at least with a sessional paper to be debated before implementation. But in this case, this sessional paper is very good. And the key aspect is about CBC, the competence-based curriculum, which is the best way to go. And this is the best practice. But it's coming when the matter has already been implemented. It's supposed to happen the other way around. I don't know where the committee was. Maybe you had table and the House business had not scheduled this on the floor of the House. And this is something which you are asking. Where my colleagues have been complaining about the few things that are there, it is good to look into that matter. And it's important the relevant committee, when you are debating on a matter like this, they should be able to take note so that when it comes to the reply, they can be able to respond to the concerns of the members. And these are the best practices world all over. And Mr. Speaker, we're also humbly requesting other departmental committees, the committees on tourism, the committees on foreign affairs, to be able to come up with sessional papers. And we should encourage more sessional papers. And in the ministry, the people who are sleeping on the job, we need people to do more research so that there's that continuous improvement. And continuous improvement can only be achieved if sessional papers are being tabled. So I want to thank the Committee of Education to what you have done. But we are humbly requesting other departmental committees also to pull up their socks. The chair in charge of lands. Lands is where we have a lot of problems. I've not seen sessional papers coming. Please, we really want these sessional papers so that we can debate from an informed perspective. So we salute the Committee on Education and the Honorable Meli, and we want other departmental committees to follow suit, not just to come from nowhere in the air. Let's move on. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support.
Honorable Member for Igembe Central, Iringo Kubai.
Honorable Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, I wanted to speak to the next motion.
Honorable Iringo. Or for the next motion. Let's have the Honorable Abdi Yusuf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to stand here to support the secessional paper of 219 presented by the Ministry of Education. I think it is critically important for us to invest in technical education in order to be able to be an achieving nation, a country that can compete in the global environment that we're in. I must say that having been away for many years, I was quite surprised when I was elected as a Member of Parliament in Kamkunji to see the state of our schools. Having worked in war-torn countries, I was quite to see how dilapidated our schools were, how the discipline of the teachers and the commitment of the teachers had gone down. Many of the schools had leaking roofs. The floors were gone. There were not many desks in some of the classes. And this was quite surprising given the fact that my constituency is in the capital city of Kenya. And I think it is quite important that the new minister puts a lot of emphasis to turn around the Ministry of Education so that it can become a much more efficient and a performing ministry that can deliver the best education for our children, promote the interest and the well-being of our teachers so that they have the confidence and the motivation to be able to teach our kids. I particularly would like to emphasize the fact that the direction in which we're going, which is to invest in our technical and vocational institutions, is the right way, given the fact that many of the countries now that are well developed industrially and are one of the top competitive countries in terms of production are countries that had gone through the same route that we're now trying to go. Countries like South Korea, countries like Singapore, and even Japan had invested in their cottage industries and given their people, particularly young people, the tools to be able to learn the necessary industries and the technical skills that are required in today's world. I also want to emphasize the fact that although it is important to put emphasis and produce a lot of the technical skills that we require in certain traditional areas, we also must be mindful of the fact that, in fact, we do need to invest in new technologies in the digital information communication technology industry. And I think there isn't enough, although the commitment is there, and there's a lot of talk about it, there isn't enough investment at the local level to be able to equip and give that experience to our young people. And I speak as an urban neighborhood, of a neighborhood with a very large number of unemployed young people who have been let down by our educational system, who have fallen off into the cracks, have not been able to go to universities and qualify, but do not have the skills necessary. And I say this because even now when I see some people who have graduated from some of our universities, and you put them to work, many of these people are not skilled in actually, they don't they have the know-how or the necessary training to be able to do the jobs that are required. And I think that is why we need to put a lot of these young people who are now unemployed and out into the streets back to into this training to get the skills that are required for them to be able to be productive citizens and to be able to participate in making our country prosperous and advance economically. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
Honourable members, you will notice that we are on a motion which had already started, and we were left with 30 minutes, and we have to leave 10 minutes for the mover at the end of the debate. And we are already at the 10 minutes meant for the mover to reply, and you can donate. This is Honourable Meli, right? Honourable Meli. So you can plan for your 10 minutes with donations. Honourable Meli, you may now reply.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, before I speak to this, I want to donate to two members because, first of all, I will know my neighbor, Honorable Koyo. He is my deputy in the constituency. When I'm there, we represent another. And then I'll also give Honorable Member for...
How many
Tongi.
minutes? Honorable Meli?
Only two. He's only going to talk for 2 minutes. He'll also talk for 2 minutes. And then I give Honorable Tuwei, and then 2 minutes. Okay. I'll speak for 4 minutes.
Honorable
Yes.
Koyo?
Koyo, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I don't know whether to extend my gratitude to my neighbor and my understudy, Honorable Meli, or to you for giving me the opportunity. But because constraints of time, I want to be in a hurry and say that from the evidence that have emerged since this debate started, the chair and this committee should understand that there are problems in the ministry that they need to address squarely, more so as pertains to the handling of the teachers' affairs by Teacher Service Commission and the lack of provision of adequate physical structures in various schools given the 100% transition. So I hope that you have taken keen interest and that these people have not just been making noise, that you have taken note of the challenges that the ministry and more so your committee should take note of and address squarely for the better of education in this country. Otherwise, thank you very much. I support.
Is it Honorable Tongi? Tongi, 2 minutes.
But our exam must be managed in a way that it doesn't disadvantage people who are gifted differently. Madam Speaker, chemistry, for example, is a good course to do. But what has chemistry got to do with a student who is an artist, who is a musician? Madam Speaker, subjects which we do sometimes in school are very important, but we should not make them as a benchmark of divining what your life is going to be like. Because there are people who have succeeded and succeeded tremendously in this world without having to have passed any exams, Madam Speaker. So as a community, as a Kenyans, we must be aware that the people are gifted differently and appreciate that as such. And I'm grateful that the section of paper addresses that, ensuring that the children who are gifted differently are not condemned on account of failing one exam, which is probably what they are not gifted in, Madam Speaker. And appreciating French, for example, is a good cause. It's good to know many languages, but doesn't make one a genius, Madam Speaker. So we should not condemn people on account of the exams alone, Madam Speaker. As I finish, Madam Speaker, because of the time, I must hasten and mention that teachers are hurting and hurting deeply because of the challenges they're facing from the TSC and all the management of teachers in the country, Madam Speaker. Teachers are a very integral part, they are very key people in our society. They divine, they make lives, and we should all support them, Madam Speaker. Some teachers who retired many years ago, Madam Speaker, to date as we speak, have not been paid. I have a friend who is an elder in my community, Apel Moranga, Madam Speaker, has not been paid his pension, despite retiring more than 4 years.
2 minutes for Honorable Tuwe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and also thank you, Chair. Personally, I would wish to welcome this session of paper because it addresses most of the concerns that we have as a country. But as we try to implement the new program and the curriculum that we have adopted as a nation and already being rolled, that we have now grade 3 of our pupils doing exams, it is my sincere request to the committee and also the Ministry of Education to consider that the matter that we are now dealing with in terms of changing this curriculum is very expensive. We as members of parliament and all stakeholders must be involved, and parents must be involved 100%, and especially to capacitate on the issue of infrastructure, teachers, and also to provide an enabling environment for this program to succeed. Otherwise, I support the motion, and I wish that this program be budgeted. As you can see, CPC is being rolled, Chair, and there is no budget for it. I wonder in the next 2 to 3 years, when we shall be having junior secondary schools from standard 6 and we have no facilities, what will happen to us as leaders, because the crisis will actually face us, not even the ministry itself. 2, who will be these teachers who will be teaching in junior secondary school when we already have a challenge in primary schools and secondary schools we have? I have very many secondary schools that have a capacity of, or actually students 1,000, and they have only 8 TAC teachers. I require 17 of them to a school. And today we are introducing a new system that we have teaching as a challenge. I urge you, Chair, to move with speed to rationalize this. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Meli.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to thank honorable members, especially for the critique and the issues that they have raised in the session of paper. I want to say that in my deliberations or in my presentation on the session of paper, I did recognize that the committee had critiqued the paper and asked the ministry to relook at it. And they did went back. That's why we have a revised version. And similarly on the same, the input of members in this is actually very important. And I want to really thank especially the various contributions that you've looked into, more specifically on teacher management issues. And I want to say this, especially on teacher management. We have a serious shortage of about 100,000 teachers in this country. And the only way to really clear this particular issue of teacher shortage is through budgeting. Actually we cannot post or actually have enough teachers if we have no budget for it. So actually this is something that we really need to look at in future so that we address this issue once and for all. Madam Speaker, on the issue of CBC, though the session of paper only handles CBC as a chapter, curriculum chapter 4, there are a number of issues that the session of paper has addressed. Early learning and the role of early education to learners. It has also addressed the issue of university education and technical education. And this is an area where it is going to solve the issue of unemployment. That is, in this session of paper, it has linked very clearly how the institutions are going to link the students with the labor market, the linkage which is there. And as the Honorable Member for Kimilili has just said, a session of paper is the spirit, it is the philosophy, it is actually the basis under which programs and policies are actually being implemented. So the fact that we have a number of gaps doesn't stop this particular session of paper from us implementing it. What I'm just saying is the input of members on the various issues that you have raised is actually very valuable. And I want to thank honorable members, especially on the issues that you brought up, which have actually gone ahead to enrich the session of paper and have a document. I want to say this for record purposes. The 844 was implemented in 1984, and there was no session of paper. This is for record purposes. This is to indicate that the CBC that we have and the various government programs that are in place have actually they have actually started on a right footing, Honorable Chair. And the Minister of Education and all the stakeholders, those who participated in it, are actually on the right foot, especially on this. On financing of these issues, and I think this is a very important thing. And I do remember that during the presidential address in March, he did ask the House actually, when we are going to vote for funds, let's vote enough, especially for this sector. So, Madam Speaker, I beg to move, and I will, on standing order number 53, I would beg to defer.
Meli, you're not moving.
Yes?
You're replying, Honorable
Oh,
Meli.
yes, I beg to reply, but on standing order 53, Madam Speaker, I beg that we defer the voting to next because of the numbers. Thank you.
That is in order, Honorable Meli. The putting of the question to the motion stands deferred until we have it next in the order paper. Let's move to the next order.
On number 10, the Early Childhood Education Bill, Senate Bill number 26 of 2018, second reading.
The chairperson, Honorable Meli, that should be you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move the motion that the Early Education Bill, Senate Bill number 26 of 2018, be now read a second time. Madam Speaker, I want to note that this Early Education Bill is actually a very important bill for this House, for this nation. And Madam Speaker, the bill seeks to, in my submission, Madam Speaker, I've just looked at the bill in various parts. The bill seeks to provide a framework for the establishment of systems for the administration of early childhood education within the counties. As we speak currently, Madam Speaker, we haven't no legal framework on early childhood education. You'll realize that counties are running the early childhood education without any clear legal framework. And this is a very important document which is going to guide this and farm the early childhood education into the laws of this country. Paragraph 9 of Part 2 of the 4th schedule to the Constitution provides that pre-primary education is a function of the county government. County governments are therefore conferred with the mandate of ensuring the implementation of early childhood education within the counties. Though as the policy and the planning part remains at the national level, this bill seeks to address and to really put the law in place, objects and purposes of the bill, as well as the guiding principles that guide counties and other actors in the implementation of the bill. Madam Speaker, as you look at Part 2 of the bill, it provides for the rights of every child to free and compulsory early childhood education in public education centers. In order to realize that right, the bill assigns various duties to county governments, parents, and as well as teachers that will facilitate the promotion of the right to early childhood education. I think, as you all know, that education in this country, as per Basic Education Act, is free and compulsory. But on the early childhood education, it has actually structured it in ways where the parents have to play their role, the county government has played their role, the teachers have their role, so that this particular right is actually ensured for the child. Madam Speaker, the bill also obligates the county executive committee member to establish such infrastructure as may be necessary to ensure the access of children with disabilities as we talk today, last week our committee visited Kibos in Kisumu, which is actually a visually impaired center school. If you look at that particular institution, it was established at the dawn of the independence, at the early period, in the early 60s. It is one of the institutions that we have in this country, I think only the 2 or 3. But during those early periods, provisions for the physically challenged were not there. But I want to say that as we went there, the school administration has actually come in and tried to improvise that so that the physically challenged, those who have issues of mobility and others can actually use the facilities quite well. And this is actually something that we have told all county executive CECs in charge of education to ensure that they really provide those services. In Part 3, the bill provides the establishment of registration and maintenance of early childhood education centers in the county government. The application for registration shall be submitted to County Education Board in prescribed form. In fact, in details, Madam Speaker, this bill seeks to really look at the sector in a radical way. That as we move forward, early childhood centers shall not be established in the current form, where churches or centers or even well-wishers can just bring students together and just ask for registration from the government. No, they shall be required, first of all, to put facilities in place. Ensure those facilities have actually been inspected. Ensure that those facilities meet the requirements of the health officer, the public health department, the public works, so that we stop the problem that we just saw the other day, where students and teachers are actually living in shanties or actually working in shanties in name of schools. So with this bill is actually put in place, it shall be mandatory that before any center is going to be registered and be known as a ECD center, it has to meet those particular requirements. The students will be the last. In the current form, Madam Speaker, and honorable members, you'll realize that even in our constituencies, we have pressure. As members of parliament, at times, you are told, we have students up to class 4 in Madwall classes. And the member of parliament is put pressure that kindly register this because there's nothing we can do because the students are already there. But in this particular instance, we are asking the county executive member to ensure that the structures and the infrastructure and all the required facilities are in place. Same thing, Madam Speaker, the bill also in Part 3 provides for the substitutability and change of premises for an education center as well as mobile schools, which shall be established based on requirements prescribed by the Cabinet Secretary. It has been known some early or ECD centers are mobile, but these cannot. You cannot change an ECD center or a mobile center in a form that is prescribed and shall be actually guided on the bill. On Part 4, the bill provides for the management of early childhood education centers, which will be vested in the Board of Management. It provides for the establishment of boards of management for early childhood educational centers. And this is actually a managerial area where the bill seeks to establish all the BOMs in early childhood educational centers. In areas where they are existing, or what I'll call standalone, they shall have their own BOMs. But in areas where they exist with the mainstream school, they shall actually be integrated in it and become part of the school BOM. In Part 4, the bill seeks or provides for the administration of early childhood education systems. The part provides for each county government shall provide for the overall governance and management of early childhood education centers. I think this is actually very important, especially the role of the CEC, the role of the early childhood education teachers, and the role of county government in managing it, because it is purely a county government function. The part also prohibits certain actions such as administration of exams for purposes of admission, holding back of pupils, expulsion from center, and changing of tuition fees in charging of tuition fees in public educational centers. A few minutes ago, one of our honorable members did say there are some schools charging illegal fees. And this is something that I think it has been talked about every other time in this house. You'll find that some schools charge admission fees, tuition fees, and all this. And this law, this bill seeks to make sure that those things are outlawed, they are illegal, they are prohibited. And I think the Minister of Education and the Minister needs to take this very seriously, and the County Executive CEC in charge of early childhood education, so that all schools, all early educational centers shall not charge that particular exam. And the bill is very clear, the law is very clear on that particular matter. In Part 4 also it provides that the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development shall be responsible for development of early childhood education curriculum to be applied in all counties. The section is very important so as to make ECD standard across the counties. I know there are certain peculiarities, especially on mother tongue, especially on cultures, and many other things. But the curricula of all the ECDs across the county shall actually be well developed by the KICD, but in conjunction with the county executive officer. Part 5, the bill provides for the accreditation of early education centers offering foreign curricula by the county education board. An education center shall submit an application in the accreditation. We are talking about foreign curriculums. And in this case, we have certain early education centers which offer a foreign curriculum. And in this sense, those which offer GCE or other type of curriculum has to be actually accredited or actually be approved by the county education boards. And most of those are actually very common, especially in the capital city, that is the city of Nairobi, where we have a number of educational institutions offering foreign curriculum. On the same note, Madam Speaker, the bill provides that the certificate of accreditation shall be valid for 5 years and renewable subject to the education center meeting the prescribed conditions. And in this case, we are talking about the early educational center accreditation. Madam Speaker, it should also be noted that the bill provides for the revocation of certificate where an education center fails to comply with a standard of accreditation. The part mandates the county education board to establish and maintain a register of accredited education centers, and this register shall be open to the public for inspection. That is actually a matter for quality assurance. To quality assure the various centers across the country, that is very mandatory. So that each and every center has to meet particular well-established criteria for them to operate. Part 7 of the bill, Madam Speaker and members, provides for the quality assurance. It enables the County Early Childhood Quality Assurance Committee, which shall be in consultation with the County Education Standards Council, ensure the maintenance of standards of education and ensure the implementation of guidelines and policies formulated by the council. This is a very important thing, and I think it is actually going to ensure that all the county education ECD centers are actually done and they are actually run as required by law. Part 8, Madam Speaker, the bill also seeks or provides safety and protection of children in an educational center and be accounted for. And the buildings and the structures that are put in place should not actually be in a way that can injure the child in that particular center. The part also requires the Cabinet Secretary to prescribe minimum standards for the health and safety of pupils for the satisfactory enforcement for the education. We know the health of these children is actually is actually still fragile. A number of them are susceptible to cold, susceptible to communicable diseases, susceptible to so many things. So it is now that this bill wants to ask the early education centers to ensure that all those particular issues that are actually in those particular centers are of high standard. Even the toiletries, even where the children are staying and playing, are actually very important. And you know, this is a time when this is a formative time of these children. So that is why every other time the health and regulation standards are very important. So as we move along, so that to ensure the safety of learners, every ECD center has to meet those particular requirements prescribed in the bill. And I think this is an area where, if we have it right, all the way from ECD, we shall have it right all the way to colleges and even secondary schools. And even the issues of collapsed buildings, the issue of fires shall be a thing of the past. Madam Speaker, on part 9, the bill provides, under the same pattern, Madam Speaker, part 8, the bill also outlaws corporal punishment, emotional or psychological abuse on learners. A few weeks ago, I stood in this house to issue a statement as a result of a child who passed on, and it is alleged that she was actually abused by the teacher. She was stigmatized, and she got trauma and actually committed suicide. The bill actually seeks to ask head teachers, and handlers of ECD not to subject the learner to either corporal, which is illegal, even psychological torture, abuse to the learners, because this will injure them as they are actually very young. On the same note, a contravention actually has been, a contravention of this will actually lead to a punishment and a fine not exceeding 500,000 for the teacher or anybody who will do that. On the bill also on part 9 provides for the transitional provisions that this part 6 sets out a transition period of 1 year from the date of enactment of the act. These are actually consequential or transitional clauses, which actually ensures that this bill is actually in tandem with the law. Lastly, Madam Speaker and members, this part also gives a transition period of 4 years to the person previously employed as early childhood education teacher, within which time they shall be required to obtain the necessary qualification for employment as early childhood education teacher under the new act. This act is very explicit, especially on the standards of officers, and more specifically the teachers, that this teacher is required to comply and must be actually examined and must be registered by the Teacher Service Commission. Every county executive member, by the act, is mandated to ensure that all the officers that are within them meet those particular requirements. This one is also to establish the standards, so that you'll find that in some counties, if a teacher has no certificate in early childhood or a degree in early childhood, you don't go on the streets and pick anyone to be a teacher of your child. The bill seeks to standardize this and make sure that the teacher is registered, the teacher has the requisite documents, has the requisite skills, has the requisite understanding, so that the early childhood is actually done as per the law. Madam Speaker, also on part 10, the bill provides for the miscellaneous provisions. There is miscellaneous provisions. This part gives powers to the Cabinet Secretary to make regulations in consultation with the Council of County Governors, the Council of Governors. Additionally, the Cabinet Secretary shall, in consultation with the Teacher Service Commission and the Council of Governors, prescribe minimum standards relating to schemes of service for early childhood teachers within 1 year of enactment of the Act. Honorable Speaker and members, we deliberated as a committee on the issue of employment of early childhood education teachers. This is a function of county government, but it shall be debated amongst you members that if it fits it, these teachers, they are paid invariably. Some county governments pay them 8,000. I want to thank the governor of Kisumu, who actually looks like he paid them about 22,000, almost the highest in the country. So if one county is paying them 8,000, others are paying them 10,000, they pay them as they deem fit. It is according to this bill, therefore, that we can actually look at this issue further. You can even propose amendment to it, so that we can ensure that certain monies, if they have been taken to the county government, they can be brought back and these learners be employed by the Teacher Service Commission for standardization, for motivation, and for recognition. These are the people whom we bestow our learners to, our children to, at very tender age. How do you give your child to a demotivated person? A person who wakes up in the morning, he didn't take tea because the salary was not enough, who didn't actually have enough food. So it is incumbent upon us as members that we look into this and ask ourselves, what are we doing? It is open to for your discussion. In the first and the second schedule, the first schedule also provides for the criteria for determining the suitability of premises, and actually that is what the bill looks at, the criteria and what you do in second schedule. The schedule also proposes the conduct of the affairs of the Board of Management of Early Childhood Education Centers, and in this, it has actually come out very clearly on how the early childhood educational centers can be handled. Madam Speaker, the bill offers the functions of the county government and is therefore a bill concerning counties for purposes of the standing orders. I think this one, we are all aware it's a Senate bill. It's a bill for purposes of our discussion here, and we shall actually dispense with it and proceed with it to the next level. On public participation and stakeholders participation, the Early Childhood Education Bill 2018, Senate Bill of 2018 was published in the Kenya Gazette, number 115 of 4th September 2018, and passed by the Senate with amendments on 22nd May 2019. The bill was also read first time in the National Assembly on 11th of June, and thereafter submitted to the Departmental Committee on Education and Research. We've actually looked at it and to comment on our recommendations, because most of the issues that our views were based on meetings that we did in public participation. We did meet the Ministry of Education, State Department for Early Childhood, Early Learning. We also had input from the Kenya Law Reform Commission. We also had the input of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. And we also had the input or a memoranda from one Mr. Daniel Okoth. In all this enriched this bill and actually gave us a wider perspective on the early childhood education bill. And actually, I want to say that this is a very important bill, not only for the county government, but for the running of education in this country. It is a bill that this House actually needs to debate and even enrich it further through our debating modes. But lastly, I also want to say that the committee considered all the proposed amendments by the stakeholders and incorporated amendments that were deemed valuable and admissible, and the primary school systems. But even in each case, we'll have a clear governance structures that run these centers so that they are not treated as a by-the-way institutions. The bill underpins the partnership that is required to see the county government role clearly linked to the national government role in terms of successful implementation and also quality management of ECD centers. It also provides punitive measures against those who fail to deliver the education at this level, both in private and also in public centers, with the clear fines and punishments that will befall those who become victims of this situation. This bill further looks at the role of the county government, who's the main player in this in ECD, and tries to bring in other stakeholders that make it possible so that the county government does not seem to be running ECDs alone. Makes it possible for local partnership and also for working closely together with the departments of the national government. I want to say that in view of the processes that this bill has gone through, and for the fact that it has brought a new face to the Ministry of Education, I will stand to second this bill, the 26th bill of 2018. Thank you very much.
Order, members. Order. Honorable Kaluma. Take your seat, please. Honorable members, I go on to propose the question, which is that the Early Childhood Education Bill, Senate Bill number 26 of 2018, be now read a second time. Quite a number of requests. Let's start with the Honorable the Honorable Iringo Kubai, member for Igembe Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice into this bill. Madam Speaker, Mutai Iringo is a Marian like me, but you are not related.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Madam
So by
Speaker.
all means, it's Honorable Iringo Kubai, member for Igembe Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me thank the Chair and the Committee of Education for having presented this bill, and the more so that he has put it that the committee is proposing amendments, which I also feel we need to put. Despite that the ministry indeed is bit, I feel in this bill there are some gray areas which need to be policed further, at least so that we can fine-tune this bill and at least put the early childhood learning in this, to give its correct space in this country, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, our children, when they start learning, I think that is the basic foundation. That's why they are called even nurseries. And you find, Madam Speaker, even a nursery where we plant trees or we grow other crops, a nursery is tended more neatly than where the seedlings are put after maturity. But in our schools, Madam Speaker, if you go to our schools today, you will find that nursery schools or the early childhood classes are neglected to the level that you find standard 1 to 8. That is where everything, all the focus is put, all the initiative, all the efforts are put, including the infrastructure. But when you go where the nursery school kids are learning, you find the classes are dilapidated. The classes are not even there. Some of them maybe are around a tree in some remote areas. More so, Madam Speaker, even their teachers, you find that a school or parents will go and pick a lady somewhere in the village who has not even been trained just to be nursing to be teaching their children. And that is a very bad foundation and a poor foundation for our children, Madam Speaker. Therefore, if our children have to have a good beginning and have a good future, we need to start with that good beginning by giving them the correct infrastructure, so that they can be able to learn nicely. They need qualified teachers who knows what they are doing. And I know these teachers must they are more important even the ones who are teaching in secondary schools, because they are nursing these children from the word go and immediately they start their learning. Madam Speaker, as we talk today, you'll find that if you go to a school, you'll find that there is the head teacher of the primary school who is answerable to the TSC, and there's the ECD teacher or teachers, if there are many classes. They work on their own independently. They are never assessed. Nobody takes to know their problems. Even if they have to call, they have their complaints, nobody will listen to them because they don't have any structure. Madam Speaker, this bill should have a structure whereby the ECD teachers, they have their own, maybe union, they have their own structure, or they are assimilated in the current unions, so that at least they have a bargaining power. If you go across the country, Madam Speaker, you might find that we have got salary structures for us ECD teachers as there are other 47 counties. Each county gives us a salary according to its whim, the way they want. They just give their salary. But we need to have a structure like a TSC, where we know that a P1 teacher starts with the salary A, and after so many years, you will end up with salary B. But in the current situation, Madam Speaker, you'll find that an ECD teacher earning only 6,000 Kenya shillings, taking care of around 50 children, and if it doesn't have leave, if there's no structure of how he works, that should be addressed, Madam Speaker. More so, Madam Speaker, there should be a link between the TSC, the Ministry of Education, and the county governments. In our current structure, as we talk, Madam Speaker, you find that there is a Minister of Education manning the administrative bit of the school. There's the TSC manning the human resource of the teachers, and the county government manning the ECD teachers. So one institution has got 3 big umbrellas on top, and none of them sit together to see how they can harmonize or see that things are moving smoothly. An example, Madam Speaker, I went to a Saturday school in my constituency, Gembe Central, and when I went there and I called the teachers, and we were to meet the teachers and the students to talk to them, the ECD class was left out. So I asked them, why are they not coming? They said that is the county government class. I told them, no, they are pupils of this school, and they must come and listen to what we are saying. Therefore, that disconnect has been there, Madam Speaker, and this bill will need to cure that one with amendments which will be brought. Madam Speaker, I would agree with the county governments being given the honors of putting up the structures or building up the classrooms. But then the personnel should come from the TSC, like the teachers. And more so, if need be, even that the putting up of the classrooms, they need to do the structures, the classrooms which are put. They are put in a way that they are uniform across the school or across the county, so that some are not done haphazardly like it is usually happening. Because once you find the ECD class, the way it is put up, it does not appear as if it is like the classroom of a class in that particular school. Madam Speaker, opening of these schools, I appreciate that the chair has put it that we will need to accredit. Where do we open this school? Which is ripe for opening? Do we have the right correct structures? Safety measures, have they been taken care of? Healthy, and all other issues which need to be looked into before we start a school. Because currently, these ECD early childhood classrooms are mushrooming from nowhere, Madam Speaker. Somebody designs behind the shop somewhere. Somebody designs behind a kiosk somewhere. Someone designs just at the back of the church. You find that they put a structure, maybe 3, 4, 5 stools, and you find the children there. That is very wrong, Madam Speaker. We need to have structures. These children are delicate. They are vulnerable to diseases. They are vulnerable to injuries. They are vulnerable to so many things. They are vulnerable to abuse. They need to be taken care of very delicately, as they are delicate beings, before they get the strength and the will to go out there and be able to do their own things. More so, they need even space for playing. Because children, they don't require a football field. They require a small place where they can play, playing materials, and just like things. There should be those structures. And that is the way we can monitor our children and bring them up, knowing that they were on a very good base. Madam Speaker, let me conclude by saying again, I reiterate, ECD teachers must be taken care of, must be handled, must be respected and remunerated just like any other teacher, because they lay the foundation of the learning of our children. I support the bill, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Well said. Let's have the Honorable Didmas Barasa, member for Kimilili.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this very important bill, Madam Speaker. But my only worry is that we have so many laws that are passed by this House, where a lot of work is needed is in the implementation, and more specifically, monitoring compliance with these particular laws, Madam Speaker. And how I wish that going forward as a House, we can even approve or rather demand that the agencies that are supposed to implement or rather monitor implementation of these laws have a particular checklist that contains the metrics that can be measured, Madam Speaker, because these laws are passed for a purpose, and the sole purpose that is to improve the early childhood education in this country, Madam Speaker, and without proper monitoring to ensure that ECD centers complies with the requirements of this law, we will be passing these laws in futility, Madam Speaker. But I'm happy that this law is also concerned about the safety of the children of this country, the early childhood students, pupils, Madam Speaker, because today, everywhere, we have a lot of mushrooming early child care centers that have not even been approved by government, Madam Speaker. And this kind of mushrooming ECD centers are even centers that breed diseases for our children because they do not comply with the regulations. And I'm happy that this bill seeks to cure that particular problem, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, education is a very important function. Early childhood education is a very important function because it sets the foundation for the career path for the children of this country. And it must be a shared responsibility between county governments and national governments, Madam Speaker. Because at the end of the day, that these children must be given proper education, even as they go to primary schools and marching forward. We will be sure that we are getting good products from ECD centers. Like we say, that garbage in is garbage out. And the way a child of this country performs in primary and secondary schools, it depends on the foundation under which this child got during ECD centers. And as such, this bill is very, very important, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I also want to ask this House that even as we support this bill, the Committee on Implementation must also move with speed to ensure that this bill is implemented, because I'm aware that this House has passed so many bills that are even those after bills have been ascended to law by the President. You see even some agencies are not even implementing this particular bills, Madam Speaker, and that one should be able to move with speed, Madam Speaker. And I also want to ask our colleagues in the Senate. We have seen in the recent past they have been taking a lot of time to dispense of the bills that have come out of this House, that this is a very important bill and that they should move with speed. If this House will approve it and forward it to the Senate can also do the same and really move with speed and also approve this bill, because it touches on the mandate of the county government directly. And as you know, the Senate is the custodian of devolution in this country, and that I am concerned that they will be able to process this bill as quickly as possible. Madam Speaker, with these very few remarks, I support this bill. Thank you.
Let's have the Honourable Member for Lamu County, the Honourable Captain Rueda.
Asante Bi Speaker kwa kunipatia nafasi hii nami kuchangia kwenye hoja hii. Bi Speaker, upande wa elimu ni sekta muhimu sana. Nimekuwa hapa kuanza saa 8:30 nikingojea na mimi nipate nafasi na angalau nichangie. Na nimekuwa na dharura muhimu, dadangu yuko hospitali, ako theater sahihi, lakini nimesema acha nikae hapa na mimi nipate hii nafasi. Hii ni kuonyesha umuhimu niliokuwa nao na mimi wa kuchangia katika hoja hii. Bi Speaker, ripoti nyingi za committee au kamati za elimu zikileta zinazungumzia mambo mazuri sana na mikakati mingi ya kuboresha elimu. Nimeipitia hii ripoti, ina mambo mengi muhimu ya kuboresha elimu. Wanazungumzia mwanzo wanazungumzia majukumu ya serikali, wanazungumzia elimu ikiwa ni haki za kibinadamu, wanazungumzia upanuzi wa nyanja mbalimbali katika elimu. Bi Speaker, mimi naona nikikaa hapa, mwanzo naunga, lakini nikikaa hapa naona tunapitisha lakini ni kama tunapitishia Wakenya wengine. Inaonekana ni kama kuna Wakenya bora zaidi wa kuwekewa hii mipango. Kwa sababu Bispika, hata ukiniruhusu kunukuu, wanasema hapa kwa lugha za Kimombo, it is a right to every Kenyan kupata elimu. Lakini ni masikitiko kwamba Lamu County Basuba Ward miaka 5 kuna shule zimefungwa. Hakuna shule ya chekechea, hakuna shule ya msingi, hakuna shule ya upili. Sasa ni kama hizi ni nzuri, lakini tunapitishia Wakenya wengine ambao ni bora. Na ni masikitiko ni kwamba sio kwamba sijafanya kazi yangu kama mbunge. Nimejaribu, nimeuliza swali na haja kujibiwa, nimeambiwa nipitie kwa wizara, nimepitia mara nyingi Bispika. Nikienda naambiwa suluhisho itatolewa njoo Jumatatu. Siku hiyo mimi huwa nafika. Nikifika naambiwa suluhisho itatolewa njoo Juma fulani. Siku hiyo nafika. Nimeenda mara nyingi, lakini ni kama hawataki kutoa suluhisho. Nawapatia ushauri. Nimeambiwa nimeandike maombi, nimeandika. Kama ni sehemu zingine ambao ni Wakenya zaidi, ingekuwa hata kama ni zile shule za mobile, wale watoto nao wasome. Ingekuwa hata kama mbinu ya kisasa inatumika, TV iko pale au tarakilishi, mtu yuko Nairobi anasomesha, akaweza wale watoto kusoma. Jamii ndogo ya marginalized community, jamii iliyotengwa, wa Basuba Ward, Waboni, Aware, paka sasa hawana hata shule ya chekechea. Kila ukiuliza swali ni ukienda kwa Ministry ya Elimu unasukumwa kwa upande wa usalama. Nimetafuta suluhisho sipati. Naomba ni vile simuoni chair ajua shida zangu. Nimeng'ang'ana kivyo vyote, kila aina sipati suluhisho. Sijui wamelengea nini hawa watoto. Manake kama katiba imewapatia ni haki wapate. Sasa mimi nasikia uchungu nikikaa hapa napitisha polisi nzuri zinaenda kwengine. Sisi kwetu hakuna. Na sisi twajua Lamu ni Kenya. Lamu ni pwani na Lamu ni Kenya. Sijui kwa nini sheria hizi zipangiwe wengine na sisi sheria hizi zitaenda wapi. Mipango mizuri ya serikali inafanya. Kwa mfano watoto wa msingi wote waende sekondari. Lamu haiwezi kufanyika. Bispika, inatia uchungu sana. Na naomba kamati wajue jambo hili, watafute suluhisho. Sasa hii najipanga tena nafanya petition. Asante Bispika.
Kama ninakuelewa vyema Captain Rueda, unaunga mkono mswada huu ama bill hii, lakini uko na malalamiko mengine na pengine sijasikia kama umekwenda mbele ya kamati ya elimu. Kama bado hujaenda, nafikiri ni vyema ukiweza kupitia kwa mwenyekiti ili masuala haya ambayo unayoyaongelea yaweze kupata suluhu. Let's move on, honorable members. We are going to interrupt the contributions on order number 10 for a bit to give the chairperson, Departmental Committee on Lands, to lay a paper which had already been spoken to by the Speaker earlier.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I would like to, first of all, thank the Speaker for being considerate and giving the committee an opportunity to lay this paper and also to give the notice of motion. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, September 26th, 2019. Report of the Departmental Committee on Lands on the vetting of nominees to the positions of chairperson and members of the National Land Commission. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Nyamai, it's my understanding that you also need to give notice on the same?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion: that taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Lands in its report on the vetting of nominees for the appointment to the positions of chairperson and members of the National Land Commission, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, September 26, 2019, and pursuant to Article 252 of the Constitution, as read together with Section 12 of the National Land Commission Act 2012 and Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act. This House approves the appointment of the following persons to the National Land Commission. 1, Mr. Gershom Otachi Bo Manwa, Chairperson. 2, Honorable Esther Morongi Madenge, Member. Professor James K. Toitoek, Member. Ms. Gertrude Nduku Nguku, Member. Mr. Gertrude Okumu, Member. Honorable Samuel Kazungu Kambi, Member. Ms. Huhubi Hussein Alhaji, Member. And Mr. Alisa Morimi Mutugi, Member. And further, Honorable Speaker rejects the nomination of the Honorable Tia Galgalo Ali as member. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well, Honorable Nyamai. We shall now have the member for Emuhaya, Honorable Milemba Umboko.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I am on the onset thanking the Education Committee for bringing this bill, which is actually a Senate bill that is before us on the ECD, that is the early childhood education. The Constitution, Honorable Madam Speaker, defines education in the Education Act and makes a statement that is holistic and strong, that education, basic education, is free and compulsory. And the Basic Education Act proceeds to define what basic education is. So it defines the basic education to include the early childhood education and proceeds on. So I want to thank the committee because this law acknowledges the need to align the ECD into the Education Act properly so that it is part and parcel of the compulsory education that is to be provided. I also want to thank them because in this particular law, as I support it, it recognizes that this function of the ECD is under the county government, but proceeds to actually bring items that will actually strengthen this department, like making sure that a legal framework is put in place for the county government to make sure that there's infrastructure for people living with disability for these children in the early childhood education. Madam Speaker, this has not been there, and the children living with disability have actually been discriminated upon when it comes to early childhood education, because the institutions, the centers we have for early childhood education are actually quasi ones that spring up depending on the individuals themselves. Some of them are private. Madam Speaker, it also streamlines the registration of ECD centers at the county level, which is very good for the general education framework. And furthermore, it puts a framework for facilities of these institutions to exist. And even further creates a board that will manage them, because majority of the
early childhood centers we have currently are managed by individuals and not with a board that actually looks at them. So I really want to support that input. In its part 8, Madam Speaker, it protects these children of corporal punishment because this is a law that has been put very strong within the primary school sector. But it affirms it now so that any forms of punishment to these early learners is actually taken care of. And finally gives a transition period. I really want to thank that committee because there's a transition period for our teachers to actually prepare themselves and align themselves with the registration framework that will be required for them to have within 4 years so that they can be mainstreamed within the Teacher Service Commission registration. And that is very, very good. I really want then to loud and emphasize the issue of registration of the teachers and employment of the teachers. Because currently the way the teachers are being employed, it has been left to the county government to do them haphazardly. There's no structure of employing these teachers systematically so that they go through an interview and we have the best getting the opportunities. So far currently, the employment of ECD teachers is treated as any other county employment, which can easily be swayed to the favors of those within the government. So this is one thing that should be flagged out strongly as this law moves on. Madam Speaker, I would also want to speak on the payment of the teachers. The law needs to come up, we need, and I think we shall be talking to the chair for such amendments, to standardize the pay for the ECD teachers so that the pay is not determined by how rich or how poor a particular county is, because the variation in payment is dependent on what the county government determines. But let's standardize their pay, standardize the curriculum, as said, so that all the ECD teachers have a standard pay and not depending on how the county government may decide. Furthermore, the infrastructure question, which the Honorable Member for Lamu spoke about so sentimentally, is an issue that I think, again, together with the chair and working close with the committee, we should actually force or try to bring in this particular law a standard way of funding infrastructure for the ECD. And this can be done by the central government giving a grant from the national government to the county government with specific instructions that this will be for infrastructure. And this will actually bring up several good infrastructure for ECD institutions within our schools. Because as it is now, the ECD structures are dilapidated, they are not there, and it's like that it's not mandatory that the county government builds them. It builds them when it wants and may not build them when they don't think they don't want them. And finally, Honorable Speaker, the payment of these teachers, like I said, we have realized that when it comes to payment of the ECD teachers, nobody seems to care. And we are very proudly paying our gardeners even far much better than those with whom we are entrusting the minds of our youngest children who are the ECD teachers. So this is a question that I want to invite the House to actually deal with more strongly so that we actually get a structured way of paying the ECD teachers. With those many remarks, I want to thank you for this opportunity, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Rachel Nyamai.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wish to start by stating that I support this bill on early childhood education that has been ably moved by the Chair Education, the Honorable Meli. Honorable Speaker, I have listened to this bill and I've realized that it is extremely important in putting a framework for administration on matters early childhood education in our counties. I'm saying this because, Madam Speaker, as we interact with education in our counties, I have seen children in dire state, in schools which are not very well organized. Madam Speaker, I would like to say that it is at early childhood education, Madam Speaker, that a child gets a base and that a child gets the first interaction with others in the world beyond their parents. And we need to give this the thought that this committee has given and introduced this bill that is important in ensuring that our children in various counties, even as much as we know that early childhood education has been devolved, that it is important to consider children in all our counties as children of the Republic of Kenya, and where we need to get concerned about the quality of education that they get, the quality of teachers, the quality of structures that these children are in. Madam Speaker, it is important for the national government itself to get concerned about policy, and I've heard from the chair, and I've also read from the bill, that this bill will ensure that the standards of education in each and every county and all schools in the country, even including schools that may be registered as mobile early childhood centers, that it will ensure that the policy is the same and the standards are the same. And I believe this is extremely important. Madam Speaker, going to the issue of the structures, as much as the county governments have the responsibility to ensure that they construct early childhood education centers, it is important for the national government to get concerned so that children, especially in rural areas, and even recently we have seen schools in the capital city where children are in extremely dilapidated structures, including the recent matter of the private school that is within the city of Nairobi, which was being shown on TV. I think it is important, Madam Speaker, that this bill is enacted and the issue of quality is ensured. Madam Speaker, also the matter of the quality of the teacher. Teachers being trained. We know that there are cases where nursery school classrooms or early childhood centers have been presented or given to the hands of teachers who have never ever been trained. This bill is going to ensure that those who meet the children first, after they have left their parents to interact with a facility of training, that are people who know how to handle them, people who have gone through education. Madam Speaker, also the skills of handling children. The chair, when he was moving, he talks about cases where we have public and where we have private facilities, where we have even teachers who are exposed to Montessori skills. The question of ability to handle a child will be highly addressed in this bill. Madam Speaker, the issue of registration is extremely important. And also it is important for the teachers to get to know that as much as their payment is coming from the county government, it is important for the national government to ensure that there is proper monitoring and evaluation of those facilities, and also ensure that counties, because we have seen situations where counties do not want the national government to monitor and evaluate, so that they know that it's important to open to monitoring and evaluation so that the standards can be evaluated. Also the link, Madam Speaker, of the first training of a child at the early childhood level, and also the link between the early childhood and the primary schools is also highly recognized in this bill. Madam Speaker, it is within enacting a law through a bill like
need at that level to start recognizing that there are children who may have those characteristics, and we need to recognize them. And Madam Speaker, the age of admission, I think it should be worded as a guide. I know that we provided exception, but we should not give that exception to the teacher, because they are in rural areas and marginalized areas. Children start going to school very late for reasons which are beyond them. Like I've told you in the case of Sukuru Island, most of the children will go to school late because they are in an island and the schools are on the mainland. Now, when we say that the age will be 4 to 6 years, then it means out of no fault of their own, they will be excluded from ECD. So maybe we should say that in exceptional cases, and not really leave it as discretionary to the teacher that those children can even go to ECD late, so long as they get education. Madam Speaker, again on the issue, clause 49, we are talking about the teacher-child ratio, but we are saying it shall be determined by, I think, the county or something. I think, or by regulation. I think for us to hold those counties accountable, we should be the ones, by this law, to determine that ratio so that our ECDs have a very good standard, if we are the ones who determine that ratio. Madam Speaker, I have a lot of issues that I wanted to raise, but I think I want to leave it for now, and I'll propose amendments later, and I'll speak to them when I bring the amendments. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I beg to support.
Very well, very well. Let me get now the representative of the teachers. Honorable Sossion.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker, for granting me this opportunity. I rise to support the bill that is before this House and thank the Education Committee for strongly concurring with the originators of the bill, that is the Senate. Madam Speaker, this is a very historic bill, particularly in the history of education and development in this country. The foundation of education, and in fact a very strong foundation of education, is in quality early childhood education. And in the event of a nation running a poorly managed early childhood education system, then we have progressively challenges across the board in education. Madam Speaker, looking at the history of efforts that this country has made, this bill should have come immediately the Constitution was promulgated, because it was well captured in the session of paper number 1 of 2005 to mainstream ECD by the year 2009. And by 2009, indeed, there was in place even a scheme of service for teachers. But after the promulgation of the Constitution, there has been a lot of push and pull on what to do with the ECD. This has been a lot of injustice, and therefore there is need to have this bill fast-tracked and properly implemented. There are a lot of challenges in the early childhood education sector. The issue of quality comes out very, very strongly, and everyone has talked about it. There cannot be quality early childhood education without quality teachers. And therefore, this bill seeks to try to address that, because quality education is dependent on quality teachers. And I believe after the enactment of this bill, it will be legally clear on the minimum standards and minimum qualifications to teach in early childhood. We've seen in the recent struggle between who to employ between counties and Teacher Service Commission, there's been different naming assigned to teachers. And the county government realized that the mandate was really moving to the to the Teacher Service Commission. They changed names to caregivers, babysitters, and all manner of names. And that is indignant. And I believe upon enactment of this bill, the teacher teaching at the early childhood will be treated with dignity and recognized as a teacher. The second aspect of quality that needs to be addressed is learning resources. Quality learning resources is also another key factor. And about 16 years down the line since the rolling out of the free primary education and capitation assigned to every child in primary, and currently capitation assigned to every child at the secondary level, it is said that in 2019, there is no capitation assigned for learning resources in early childhood. And this is a matter that also needs to be addressed as we work on this bill, so that if it is capitation across the board, and there should be sufficient capitation for teaching and learning resources per child in at the early childhood level. The third aspect of quality ECD or education in general is quality infrastructure. And we are speaking to this bill at a time when we are smarting from a disaster that was uncalled for. And quality infrastructure at the early childhood is a matter that needs to be addressed. And this squarely rests with the county governments to ensure that there are quality classrooms and other infrastructure in place. Finally, Madam Speaker, I wish to speak to the rights of teachers who are teaching at the early childhood. It has been a big debate, and even at this point, no law is very specific on who really employs the ECD teachers. I wish to submit, and I hope it comes through an amendment, and so that it is clarified. The Constitution is very clear in terms of the Teacher Service Commission as an independent constitutional commission. As an independent constitutional commission, the assumptions that it serves only the national government is wrong. As an independent constitutional commission, it serves the nation, and therefore it should be able to employ teachers across the board, from ECD to tertiary institutions, and manage. It is not enough for Teacher Service Commission to exercise the role of registration and disciplining without employing. You cannot regulate an employee who is not under your armpit in law. Even as we support this bill, we seek consensus across the board, both at the Senate Council of Governors and this House and the nation at large, to agree that it is only fair and reasonable that the people of Kenya is sufficiently funding the Teacher Service Commission, then therefore it should take over the full responsibility of registering and employing and managing teachers at the early childhood education. I support this bill, and we look forward to a very vibrant early childhood education, properly managed. And I believe alongside this, we'll have a clear national policy for early childhood education so that it can guide the operations of this sector. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well, good insights, and I'm sure all our members will know most of you are proposing amendments, and you know at the right time we are at liberty to provide an amendment in the Committee of the Whole, and I'm sure we'll incorporate all those. The member for Ingembe South. Oh, he's consulting the Honorable. Then I can see the Honorable Mulemba has spoken to this, Mwaya. Let me have the member for Nyaribari Church, Honorable Tongi Mokaka. Oh, I can see he's also consulting. The member for Muaroni. There's some members who really want to speak to this, and I can see that he wants to contribute to the next one. The member for Kitui West. The Honorable Edith Nyenze.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to make my contribution to this very important bill on early childhood education. Let me first of all start by noting that early childhood education is very important because this is the transition of the young ones from being in a home setup to being in a school. And this is their first encounter with the world. This is their first encounter with different people. Therefore, it's very important. And therefore, the schools for early childhood education, the setup should be in such a way that it is very attractive, that the child won't fit comfortably as they move from being in a home setup to being in a school. So these institutions should be made in a way that they are attractive, and not only attractive, but comfortable. Because this is the start of, this is the first impression which this child would get about school, which this child would get about learning. So it should not be treated lightly. like it's done in some cases. You find that just different, especially in the rural areas, you find few parents coming up with arrangement to start such a school should also be actually adequate, and there should be space to play, because at this age they are used to jumping, to shouting, so they require very safe and spacious grounds and space for them to play and continue growing in an education setup. So that's why I'm actually supporting this bill on early childhood, because it's catering for some of this. It's also, I've also noticed that it's also taking into consideration children who are born with disabilities. This has been wanting, especially for children who are born with disabilities. We do not have enough institutions. We don't have enough classes, and you find such a child is not given their right, the right of education, because they would stay with their parents. Some of their parents would even hide them, and they even become a bother to their parents. But I've seen that this bill is taking into consideration the children who are born with disability. And therefore, for such children, they require quality education, which can only be offered by teachers who have quality education, not teachers who are demotivated, because you find some teachers who have not been observed by the county governments, who have not been employed. They are actually employed by their parents, who give them very little, and sometimes they are not even given any pay. And these are the teachers who take care of such delicate children, and this would actually affect their education. And the other thing is that the link between the Ministry of Education, the TSC, and the county governments should be structured in such a way that it takes into consideration early childhood education. Because you find that in the primary schools, the teachers are well trained. There are even inspections which are done, or now the curriculum is being followed. But in early childhood, such structures are lacking. So we should have structures for the early childhood. Then the teachers also need to have a scheme of service, whereby there are good structures on how they will be paid, and so that they are assured of getting a pay at the end of the month, and that they know how much they will be paid, because of some of them will get very little, and they are not even assured of getting that pay at the end of the month. These teachers should also belong to a union who would take care of their needs, who would discuss about their payments, where they can take their grievances, where they can even share about their payment and such things. They should even have standardized salaries, and also they should also belong to SACCOs. They should also have pensions, so that they feel comfortable. When we make the teachers be qualified, have quality education, be comfortable at least with the assurance that they will get pay, and that at the retirement they will also get their pension, then these will be motivated teachers who will take good care of our children. So we need to motivate the teachers by the government taking care, and the TSC, who is in charge of registration of schools and in charge of the remuneration of teachers, should also take charge of the early childhood teachers, so that they are motivated enough to take good care of our delicate children. So with that, Madam Speaker, I support the bill. Thank you.
You support the bill. The member for Kiharu constituency. The Honorable Nyoro Ndindi.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I rise to support. Madam Speaker, I have listened to the sentiments from my colleagues, and I side with most of them because this bill seeks to improve the early childhood education for our children, Madam Speaker. And from where I sit, Madam Speaker, pre-primary and ECD, whichever way you'd want to call it, is not just purely about learning, but it's also more about growing. Because I remember even in our time, Madam Speaker, going to nursery school then, as it was called, was not an experience to go and learn per se. It was not about the issue of doing examinations afterwards and graduating towards going to class 1, but it was an experience to go and meet your buddies. It was an experience to go and experience much more than the curriculum would offer. And therefore, Madam Speaker, even as we talk about improving our ECD, it is important for us to focus on facilities that go beyond learning and actually that promote more of growing. Because, Madam Speaker, as we talk about early childhood, this is a period where perceptions are shaped, and of course, a lot of what we believe in, even as adults, were shaped during our early childhood, Madam Speaker. And therefore, I would wish, and I'm sure most of it has been taken care of by the bill, that we have much more facilities beyond classrooms. Madam Speaker, we talked about playground and, of course, well-endowed facilities for these children, Madam Speaker, to participate even in what children can do better or does better. Madam Speaker, also, I am elated because for the first time, we are going to standardize the curriculum of our ECDs, Madam Speaker. Because from where I come from, any ECD and every ECD actually teaches what they deem best. And Madam Speaker, these children graduate to go and face another standardized curriculum from grade 1. And therefore, Madam Speaker, it is only better and it's only good that we standardize our curriculum from down there at ECD level so that we can have basic standardized material, Madam Speaker, on which we feed to these young ones so that, Madam Speaker, they can be in the same wavelength even as they go to the primary schooling, Madam Speaker. And also the issue of the tutors and the teachers of these ECDs, Madam Speaker. I can dare say that we have improved as a nation because previously, Madam Speaker, the teachers of ECD would just be picked from the village, Madam Speaker, and especially to those who would speak most in the village. But Madam Speaker, now, after the proliferation of many colleges that especially prepare teachers to go and teach those young ones, Madam Speaker, we have many more qualified people out there, Madam Speaker. What we need is there are interviews, even as we hire them, Madam Speaker, so that we can hire those people who are competently trained, Madam Speaker, and to go and handle and teach and prepare these young ones. But Madam Speaker, also, I have noted something even in my constituency, where we have many ECDs centers located in places very far away from normal primary schools. And Madam Speaker, this week, actually this week, I was in a place called Mujini in Muranga town, where we were trying to relocate the ECD there to go to a place that we have a primary school, like Mujini Primary School. And I believe this duplicates in so many other constituencies, Madam Speaker, where it becomes very hard for the management of these ECDs, and especially those that are located very far away from primary schools. Madam Speaker, we need also, especially in where we should input amendments, Madam Speaker, to have these ECD centers domiciled within primary schools, Madam Speaker, so that we can take advantage of the head teacher as the head of the primary school, also taking care of these ECDs, Madam Speaker, other than having primary schools in different areas and ECD centers franked outside and far away from their counterparts who are in primary schools. Madam Speaker, the issue of the cost of ECD is also a main issue, especially to parents. Because, Madam Speaker, currently we have capitation and almost free primary education, and especially in public schools, and we are paying a lot of money also to the students in high schools through capitation. But, Madam Speaker, we don't take care of the parents who have these young ones in these learning institutions. And in some areas, Madam Speaker, it's very expensive because some of the areas, actually teachers have to cough to supplement the county governments in terms of employing more teachers. Madam Speaker, on this, I am sure in the coming, we'll be able to relook at this bill, Madam Speaker, so that we can improve it even in future, so that we can have those people who are pre-primary being taken care of by the Treasury through the Ministry of Education, so that, Madam Speaker, we can also have them sponsored partly or even fully by the government. Also, Madam Speaker, something that is also very key. These people and these young children, Madam Speaker, even beyond learning, they also need to be fed. And, Madam Speaker, it is said that an angry man is an angry man. Madam Speaker, some of these young ones come from families that can barely actually be able to even afford one meal. And therefore, Madam Speaker, for us to have standards in these learning institutions, the government, even during our time it used to be there, we used to take porridge. The government should look at the issue of standardizing education, even beyond books, and going even to the lunch, and especially lunch, Madam Speaker, meals and especially lunch that is taken by these young ones, Madam Speaker, because as I said there before, the issue of ECD and the mandate of ECD is not purely about these young ones coming out with flying grades, but it is also an institution to grow these young ones to be responsible citizens, to be energetic citizens, Madam Speaker, and that can only happen if you also take care of their diet. Madam Speaker, lastly, we have a very good model, and especially through TSC. But, Madam Speaker, the same problem we have in the health sector is also duplicated in our ECDs, where in our health sector, Madam Speaker, we find that the nurses and the doctors, for example, in the county of Nairobi, for them to go and work in a different county, they would have to resign from here and go and seek fresh employment from the other counties, Madam Speaker. And I think, Madam Speaker, because these people go to the same colleges, the kind of work they do, and especially after standardizing the curriculum, is the same. Madam Speaker, going forward, we need to enrich our early childhood education by having an equivalent of TSC, Madam Speaker, that, number one, addresses the issue of standardizing the salaries of ECD teachers, Madam Speaker, but also in terms of flexibility of working locations, Madam Speaker, so that a person relocating from this county to the other will not need to necessarily be subjected to having to resign from the other place and seek fresh employment in the different county, Madam Speaker. And I think the issue of flexibility of labor is one of the prerogatives of a growing economy, and especially in an era where we are trying to change our curriculum to prepare our human personnel to be top-notch. Madam Speaker, with those many remarks, I support.
Let me have the member for Taita Taveta, the women representative, that is Honorable Mizinki Unene.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me opportunity to also add my voice into this very important bill. Madam Speaker, having learned what it entails, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the Committee of Education and the Chair for a work well done. Madam Speaker, most of these requirements and proposals that are in this bill are very important and very, they are relevant, Madam Speaker, into making our education system better,
or to upgrade our education sector, and most importantly, the ECD, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, again, having listened to most of us speak of this bill, Madam Speaker, I can see and have heard that the bill is well articulated. It has touched most of these contentious issues that are in the education sector, and therefore, Madam Speaker, I support this bill, knowing that, Madam Speaker, if this bill can be implemented, then, Madam Speaker, it shall change the lives of our children in this country, and it will make education sector, most importantly, the ECD, a better place for our children. I support this bill, Madam Speaker, and thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Very well. Well spoken. The member for Nyaribari Masaba is in the house. Honorable Obaki.
Thank you very much, Madam, for giving me the opportunity.
Machogu. Is it Machogu or Machogu?
Machogu Mbaki.
Machogu, okay, very well.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this very important bill. One, I would like us to understand where we are and where we want to go. One, as a country, the Kenyan Constitution, Article 53, clearly spells out that indeed basic education is compulsory and is supposed to be free. Each and every Kenyan child is supposed to access education at that particular level. But what is happening, Madam Speaker, in our various constituencies, including mine, is that this is not the case. Why is it that this is not the case? Because we all know that early childhood is critical, is important, if indeed education is going to be the pillar of our development that it is. But the way things are, when we came up with the new constitution and we distributed and allocated functions, all the other segments of basic education were given to national government. And early childhood was given to our counties, and the counties, I think, have not embraced this idea that basic education is not only necessary, but as enshrined in the Kenyan Constitution, is free and compulsory. Why do I say so? A number of our counties have not given priority to this very important area. And you find any given year, no substantial allocation is made to this particular area that is so critical, Mr. Speaker. And that is why you find in our areas no infrastructure, no facilities as required are actually existing. Even payment of teachers, like my constituency, I know of one particular early childhood center where the parents are contributing money, giving 100 shillings per term in order for the teacher to be paid, meaning the county which is supposed to have taken the responsibility has kind of abdicated their responsibility. And I hope with this bill now, the endorsement and the passing of this bill, the counties will come back to their senses and take up this particular responsibility, which is so key because, Madam Speaker, it is at that first and initial impression which a child gets, this foundation, which will make him or her be enthusiastic about education, because if we don't make them to be enthusiastic at this particular level, then even when they join standard grade 1 and going on, it might be able to affect their education, Madam Speaker. And even finally, Madam Speaker, I think we should also be able to look at the size of the acreage of these particular educational centers, because some of us, where we come from, you find a primary school which is accommodating most of these centers hardly has 2 acres. So if we say the minimum is going to be 1 acre, then that will be quite problematic in a number of areas, including where I come from, Madam Speaker, in this particular aspect. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I want to support this bill and congratulate the committee which has brought it over. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well. I'm sure those proposals the chairperson is in and his committee. And as members, you know the right way to do it. Then let me have the member for Karachuonyo constituency, the Honorable Odriol Okuome Adipo.
Okuome.
Okuome.
Thanks, Madam. Madam Speaker, thanks for giving me this opportunity so that I can air my voice in support of the bill. I, however, see quite a number of challenges in my constituency, as well as other constituencies I've visited. Let me start, Madam Speaker, by saying something about the teachers. The teachers we have for ECD are in a number of cases just picked from amongst the population surrounding the centers. They are not well trained, and therefore they are ill-equipped for the exercise they are required to do. Madam Speaker, when I'm talking that way, I mean that such kind of variation, so that in other centers they have well-trained teachers and others don't have trained teachers. We are creating a difference in standard when we are starting our children off for education. Therefore, would really want a lot of emphasis to be put on training the teachers who are going to start off our children for their future. The other challenge is that the teachers we have out there for the centers are either very few or non-available for those institutions. Some of these institutions are closed because there are no teachers. But where the teachers are there are very few in terms of what they are required to do. Again, the other challenge with the teachers are that they are not people with adequate education for that kind of work. I therefore feel that the right method is that the TSC should take them over. That's when we can have a uniform standard within the nation. I want to also address the issue of the classrooms where they are taught. I heard some of my colleagues say that some classrooms are dilapidated. That's probably generous in comparison to what I know the situation is in a constituency such as mine. Some of the buildings they are in are condemned buildings. And this does not even apply to the ECD classes alone. I have so many of them in primary, so many of condemned classrooms, both in primary and secondary schools. When I say this, Madam Speaker, I throw my mind back to what happened, I think yesterday, when the Minister or the CS for Education closed a school within Nairobi because it looks as if the classroom which caused that bad incident ought to have been condemned before. Now, if our education is to really continue smoothly with some safety, I would ask and urge very seriously that the government checks the kind of classrooms we have so that they provide and give us money to take care of these condemned classrooms. The first-timers like me some of us have inherited condemned schools in our constituencies. And this is causing us a hard time because much as personal, I would like to sort out the issues of condemned classrooms. The demands for from the other areas or schools is so much that if I were to concentrate on condemned schools, it means I will be ignoring some of the requests we get from other areas of the constituency. I therefore would very much emphasize on classrooms, Madam Speaker. Now, for the children themselves, we need to take a serious step to ensure that they are enrolled so that some of them are not left behind for an important kind of approach to their future that we are trying to fortify by sanctioning this bill. I would say that I'm very glad the children who are in these institutions, the classrooms for ECD, are benefiting. But I would like the benefit to go across the board so that we are able to give adequate education to our children. Again, it is not clear as to whether they should pay fees or not. I know the bill is trying to address this issue. But at that stage, it would have been very adequate and in fact better for the parents if they are given that kind of education without paying. I'm aware that the county governments are responsible for ECD, although in terms of practicality, you find parents think that all those fall within the responsibility of the member of parliament. Madam Speaker, thanks so much for having given me the opportunity to talk about this important bill. I once again say I support the bill. Thanks, Madam Speaker.
Very well, very well. There's this member, your card has been, yeah? And members, please, if you are leaving, please notify us that you're not leaving, you're not coming back or you're consulting. Like the member for the Tonki, he's left his card here, and of course I cannot see him in the house. We had called the member for Igembe South. I'm aware you were consulting, but before I give it to you, allow me give it to, and Honorable Emuhaya, you made a contribution, and you're aware, if you spoke to this motion, which you are consulting, if you're not speaking to it, you're somewhere. But I can tell you were speaking to something different before. So before you, let me have the member for Chepalungu. Yes, have you spoken on this one? Yes, I was right. You have spoken on this one because your card was on request. And member for Chepalungu,
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to add my voice on this very important bill that touches about our young, tender-age children. Madam Speaker, despite the growing importance of early childhood education, especially in Kenya, a number of challenges has faced the childhood education, and it has pulled down its policy framework in putting in place a proper framework for upkeep of our children. Madam Speaker, when you look at across Kenya, there is less attention from the government side in terms of putting proper attention to equipping young children at their tender age during the development stage of education. It is believed, Madam Speaker, that a successful program that are given to our young children at nursery school or early childhood education, it is believed when it is successfully implemented, it gives out quality children through the primary level and secondary level. Madam Speaker, we have the challenges of inadequate teaching. We have lack of learning resources. We have poor salaries, especially to the teachers of ECD. To change the life of a young kid, it needs a lot of attention. All the teachers on primary, on nursery schools in Kenya should be paid almost at the level of a secondary school teacher, because they give more attention to these children if we want quality education after the nursery education. There are a lot of things that are required, like the playing field. Learn is very important, because these children need a lot of time to go and play and also be given attention in class. There is ECD teachers in Kenya. The government should take it up as a national government function, not a default function. Because with the mixed activities that are required from the county governments, this one is very essential, because it determines the future of this great nation. Madam Speaker, we want to request the government to fully take over the payment, the fees that are required for these young children. It should be free, because we want to bring on board all the children to ensure that the nation is moving forward as one. With those very many remarks, I want to thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well, the member for Chepalungu, at least for being considerate of your other members. Honourable members, I have 14 members who have requested to speak to this. And if we are fair enough, I'm sure we'll all get opportunity to make a contribution. The member for Mogosho.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support this bill on early childhood education. The bill itself is very important. We all know that starting on the right footing for the young ones is always very critical. The young ones are fragile, and actually most of the time they are closer to their mothers or their parents as possible during those early stages. So having a good learning environment to start off their journey in education associated with ECDs or establishment of ECDs includes not only restricted to that, but includes acquiring of land. Most of the times, you find that acquiring of land to put up ECDs is a problem. Although these are county functions, we know ECDs are county functions. Members, console kidogo.
Order. I only address the speaker. I will deal it for you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The two members, you are disrupting the honourable member for Mogosho.
Thank you.
Please,
thank
can
you.
he be heard and in silence?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for coming to my aid. As I said, in my constituency, the major challenges associated with ECDs, the first one involves acquisition of land to put up the facilities. And although we all know this is a county function, most of the times they approach me to assist them through the CDF to acquire the land. I know in this particular bill, they have actually talked about restricting to an acre, but most of the times in my constituency, these particular ECDs later become primary schools, Madam Speaker. And more often, they need to acquire a little bit more than an acre so that they grow slowly to become primary schools. The other challenge, Madam Speaker, is the distance between these ECDs. We all know these children are around 3-4 years old. They virtually cannot really go long distances. So putting up several ECDs is quite necessary, But most of the time, you find that the county governments have really abandoned that particular function. They have actually gone slowly, and they are not actually putting up these facilities on record time. Another challenge, which I actually, when I visit these ECDs, I see that the status of the infrastructure is not quite good, Madam Speaker. You find that most of the times, most of the floors are really full of dust, and the children are learning in environments which are not conducive for learning. Even access to good, clean water and sanitation sometimes become a problem. And therefore, this particular bill, looking at it closely, Madam Speaker, I see that they have tried to be as comprehensive as possible. They have looked into the issues of registration requirements. They have also looked into the issue of curriculum, standardization of curriculum for all ECDs countrywide. They have talked of management of ECDs, having board of managements, and even payment of teachers, because payment of teachers is also another challenge in areas. Like I've seen most of our ECDs, parents have to chip in. As other members have mentioned, Madam Speaker, the issues of fees payment or fees challenges is something which needs to be clarified clearly. And I think the county governments need to really to hop up their game in terms of actually managing these particular structures. We know that these particular ECDs feed pupils finally to primary schools, and therefore we as in charge of the primary schools, we need to work closely with ECDs. I know most of these ECDs are attached to primary schools, and therefore the management of these particular institutions should closely work with the administration, the sub-county education officials, so to see to it that by the time the ECD pupils graduate to standard 1 and after them, that is properly done. I know we are moving to a new program of CBC, that is the new curriculum.
Must have at least 1 acre of land. And especially in towns like Nairobi, land is very, very expensive, and that is limiting our kids to access to education. I think that needs to be reviewed in a manner that towns or urban centers can also be exempted from this, so that we can also have as many early learning education centers as possible to cater for early childhood education. But I'm happy about the first schedule, which gives the guidelines about the infrastructural developments that must be in place in terms of the sizes, in terms of how many must be accommodated in a classroom, not more than 40 kids, because we have seen some of the learning centers with more than even 50 children, some even seated down, some even standing, some in very, very pathetic situation and very crowded situation. So this first schedule under clause 19 gives all those requirements, and it makes it now mandatory because it now it has a legal framework, and whoever flouts this now can also face the consequences of the law. Initially, it had been left for any learning center to do whatever infrastructural development that they would have wished, all at their convenience. That has already been removed by this act. Madam Speaker, the clause 24 provides for suspension of education centers where pupils are at risk. We have seen recently the unfortunate event that happened at the the primary school where we had a building collapsing. This act now provides that our kids at that early age should also be protected in the law, so that if the board or the county education board finds that the institution is at risk or it risks our children or exposes our children to risk, then they can suspend. And proceeding to the next clause, 25, it can also lead to cancellation of a license to operate that kind of an institution. It also gives Clause 26. I'm happy it also gives the institutions, the learning centers, an opportunity to appeal against any decision that they may find ultra-vires or going beyond the law. So they also have an opportunity. Madam Speaker, I'm happy about Article 37, which places the sole responsibility of the governance and management of these learning centers to the county governments. Article 38(2), it standardizes the remuneration of the teachers in the ECDs, and it is couched in mandatory terms that the pay or the remuneration shall be determined by the ministry by the ministry in consultation with the SRC. So this gives the ministry, the national government, and the SRC an opportunity also to standardize pay for the teachers who really work very hard. People might think that ECD teachers do very little, but they do a lot, and that standardization also gives them at least that comfort. Other things like free admission under Article 39 are also very good, so that to avoid a situation whereby a county might wake up one day and decide changing parents for children who are joining ECDs. Non-discrimination of whatever form has also been provided in the Act under Article 40. And more importantly, the teacher-child ratio that has already been now enacted, that will prevent a situation whereby one teacher will be teaching more than required. So the teacher-child ratio
defines right to education as a basic right. And for quite some time, this right has not been properly exercised as per Article 53, 1B of the Constitution, because it gives, it's a human right. Actually, looking at international instruments, there are several definitions regarding the interests and the rights of the child. There are rights to discrimination. And for example, we have like the African Charter on the rights of the child. And looking at Article 20 of the African Charter on the rights of the child, it gives the interests of the child as a paramount interest, which must be put into consideration. And we have the African Convention on the Rights of the Child. All those international instruments clearly recognizes right to education as a basic international right. And those are inherent rights, Madam Speaker. And I've looked into some of these provisions, and I can see there are like provisions for mobile schools, and there are also penalties to the parents, because parents must ensure that since this is a free and compulsory right that is granted to our children, parents and teachers have obligations to ensure that these rights and these provisions are well, you must meet the provisions of this act in ensuring that these basic rights and these rights to childhood education are all met. Madam Speaker, I have also looked, especially looking at obligations of the county in promoting the right to childhood education. There are several obligations on how the county government, because this is a devolved function under our constitution, in providing free and compulsory early education in public education centers within the county. There are obligations like providing programs and plans on how to implement policies for realization of these important rights, and also on how to implement, and of course, in consultation with the relevant stakeholders. So this bill also gives a chance to the public for their participation and their input on how these rights are going to be realized. And of course, it has captured the marginalized marginalized, vulnerable, and those who are disadvantaged.
Order, Honorable Member Fortetu. Honourable members, I must appreciate that this bill, the Early Childhood Education Bill, Senate Bill number 26 of 2018, has attracted a lot of interest. And because we are guided by time and pass on, of course, to our own standing orders, I want to appreciate the members who want to contribute to the same. Many members are consulting. Honorable Member for Bura, Member for Kwenya, Kinagop, I can see you in the house, you're ready to contribute to this. Honorable Jiro, Muchangi, Member for Runyenjes, amongst others. And members, because we are guided by our own standing orders, the member for Tetu, the Honorable Mwangi Gishui, whom we've interrupted your debate on this, you will have 5 minutes when the debate resumes. So you plan for your 5 minutes. Again, I want to say that the debating of the bill will still continue. I thank you all for that. And members, the time being 7:01 p.m., the House stands adjourned till the Tuesday, 1st October 2019 at 2:30 p.m.